Kaylee Cuoco and Sam Claflin star in the MGM Plus original series, Vanished. When the man Alice loves disappears on a train to the south of France, every romantic memory becomes evidence. Every intimate detail, a potential threat. She thought she knew everything about him, but she may not even know his real name. 4-part thriller Vanished premieres February 1st on MGM Plus. Finding the truth is a dangerous affair.
On February 13th, Crime 101 hits theaters.
What is it that you do?
I take high-value items and make them disappear.
So you're a thief.
This guy's a ghost. There's no DNA. He's in and out in seconds.
Your guy's untraceable.
Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Barry Keoghan, and Halle Berry. One crime connects them all.
We're good at this.
Yeah.
Crime 101, directed by Bart Layton. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent. Only in theaters February 13th.
Welcome back to DocuFiles. We already told you in last week's episode what to watch and prepare for this episode, which is Brandy Hellville. Next week, we're going to be covering Bama Rush, which I am very excited for that one. I think I watched it a long time ago. Listen, a lot of these I have already watched, and I'm rewatching or relearning because they're from years ago. So it's been interesting revisiting some and learning about some other new topics from newer documentaries to me. I love this segment so much, and we hope you guys are loving it too. So make sure you comment on YouTube, comment on Spotify, join the conversation because we're talking about these documentaries and having a blast.
And we want to hear what you have to say about them. That's part of what makes this segment fun, is that we're all going to be in a group chat together talking about the same thing that we watched. And not everyone's going to have the same opinion. So be sure to include yours, because it may be different from what we've said on the episode, and it may be different from what other people are putting in the comments.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This documentary, diving right in, it left me with some questions, and I think it had some really important topics to it. It wasn't 100% of what I expected to come out of it, if that makes sense. Since we have this whole documentary, you're expecting maybe something similar to when we covered the American Apparel documentary before we were doing it every week. Something really horrible and sinister, which of course there were sinister things that came out of it, but this was really just a discussion of ethics and horrible, poor behavior as opposed to progressive, illegal incidents. Does that make sense? I'm like tripping over my words because what happens and what they talk about is pretty horrific, but there's more like several horrific things surrounding as opposed to one total central theme. And then we also got some information on the impact of fast fashion throughout this, which is honestly something I am always trying to work on. The second I'm working on it and I think I'm on it, you learn something else. And it's very difficult for us as consumers to win today. But I think that that's even more reason why that part of the documentary is important. Brandy Melville is considered fast fashion. And I guess to some people, there might be different definitions, but my definition of fast fashion and what seems to be the bar that I can find and adopt from what's out there in discourse about it on the internet is that obviously it's fast, it's mass production, it's quick, it can be thousands of drops a month of new styles, but also it's more about environmental impact as well. A lot of brands are really greenwashing today, pretending that like they are doing it right when in reality, there might not be as much accountability on all of that. And so that's what it is to me.
I think one element that we didn't touch on is the fact that with them being able to have drops or these big drops of styles done so quickly is there's an exploitation of workers.
Yes.
That's also happening. That's also a reason that these products are able to be so inexpensive. And as a result, they're not quality pieces. They fall apart. You wear them once and it's really enough for it to look good that moment, and then you throw it in the wash and it disintegrates basically, or it falls apart in some other way, like the hems come loose. It's not a quality piece that's meant to live in your closet forever. It's something to wear going out and then you dump it. That's how I've always viewed fast fashion.
Yes, that's a really easy way to tell Shein and
Forever 21
and
RIP.
Those are really easy, big, huge brands that you can immediately identify. And I will say, though, that there are companies like, say, Brandy Melville, where it was honestly, for me, it would have been a lot more difficult to identify it. It really branded itself as this like Americana brand, when in reality, the founder of the brand was Italian, not American. And you learn in this documentary how that ties into fast fashion anyways, because you see these clothes like Brandy and probably many other brands, and it says made in Italy. And to us, sometimes if something has a European tag, you immediately think, oh, this A isn't fast fashion. And
it's a little bit more quality.
B, yes, it's quality. It's European fabrics, textiles, and quality. Craftsmanship is the word I'm looking for. When in reality, they have a sort of sweatshop row, if you will. And it is very sad and exploitative to all of the workers in this fast fashion city, almost. Like these sweatshops started popping up a little while ago, and it's just grown. So if you see made in Italy, it is probably from this area of Italy. I can't remember the name of it. Do you remember the name of the city?
Moto?
Maybe. I don't know why nothing's ringing a bell, but I do know obviously that it's in Italy, and it's just culturally there started popping up as quick work for immigrants to Italy. And it just hasn't stopped. And it allows brands to have that made in Italy tag without lying. And a lot of people just don't know about it. I didn't. And I had forgotten about it too. Not only did I not know the first time I watched this, I think it came out in 2024, and I watched it very soon after it came out. Now, almost 2 years later, I had completely forgotten about that. So I might see a made in Italy tag and go, oh, interesting. Listen, the best thing that you can do is read your tags. What is it made out of? And then compare the price to that. For example, for me, if it's not 100% cotton, I'm probably not going to spend a good dollar on it. I'm not saying I'm not going to wear a poly blend or something if I like it and it's cute, But in reality, if it's not like 100% cotton, you probably don't want to go to Nordstrom or Macy's and spend $200 on a sweater if it's not going to be 100% cotton. So this is why I like brands like Quinn's and like some other brands where I can find some like quality pieces. I'm working on it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. My closet honestly has really been changing as any of these fast fashion pieces fizzle out, quite literally, in the dryer or whatever. So I don't know. I guess it's something we're always going to have to try and learn about and watch for and pick your battles with as well. Because we only have so many choices as a consumer.
I think that's also part of growing up and, having your brain develop is you start realizing that you want your money to go to things that are going to last and that are going to be more sustainable, whether that means for your wallet, for the environment, whatever, is your reason for doing so. Like, it's hard to make money these days, and you want that money that you're spending to go to something that you're going to be able to use again and again. And I really look at like fast fashion, like Brandy Melville, Forever 21, as these places for young adults that may not have the resources to invest in quality pieces. So they get something that's good for now. And I understand that because don't get me wrong, I've definitely shopped at Forever 21. That was like a big thing when I was in college. And so I get it. You have to go where you can afford things.
Well, and it's like you're going out that night and you want a cute new top. What did you do?
Yeah, you're wearing jeans and a top.
You ran over to Forever 21 so that you could get that cute new top. Maybe you get home, you'd get it cleaned up and wear it. And that was that. It was accessible. So you bring up such a great point of how do we marry accessibility affordability and lessening the impacts both environmentally and physically on workers as well as the earth with having that. And it can be hard. And there are brands out there, again, I already mentioned one earlier, that kind of aim to do that, but it's still just not as cheap. It's just not. So that $10, $20 cute new top, it's hard to find if it's not going to be fast fashion. So I think what was also really sad is we sort of wrap up the fast fashion of it all, because they really do weave this theme in and out.
Oh, it was a big part of the documentary. And I almost felt like it made it drag on for me because, like,
yes,
I get it. You know what I mean? It almost felt like it was beat into our heads so much that it almost started to feel like filler. I wanted to hear what was wrong with Brandy Melville. And I understand, like, this is a big part, but it was almost like, all right, let's get back into what happened. And I felt like we didn't get as deep on other instances that happened with the brand like we did with that part.
It trivialized to me the importance of the topic of fast fashion. Look, you and I just spent 10 or more minutes talking about fast fashion. It is a very important topic, but you're right. It started to feel like filler and a little bit disjointed from the story of Brandy Melville, while it makes sense and while as a theme. So we absolutely don't want to write off how important the topic is, but what we're saying is to the documentary from a cinematic perspective, right? We're looking at all different types of perspectives. The cinematic perspective was it started to trivialize it because there were maybe scenes of it. Like, how many times were we going to walk up and down the beach that had the clothing? And we've learned it through other scenes about fast fashion in that documentary.
To me, it almost felt like soapboxy too. Like, I want to watch a documentary. Yes, I want to learn things, but please don't stand on your soapbox. That's almost what it felt like. And so I got it. And let's keep going. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, if it didn't have that whole storyline, I think it would have been like 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes of a documentary.
And that, to me, goes back to the idea that it ended up trivializing a very important topic, as well as the topics from the rest of the documentary. So I'm with you. I do not mind. In fact, I encourage a discussion about fast fashion. It's important to learn, such as, oh my gosh, made in Italy might signify actually that it's fast fashion, and here's this whole area. I learned things, but it almost felt like two documentaries put together. Can I say it that way? That's actually what I really mean. I'm interested in both topics to a certain extent, and they're both important, but it felt like two different documentaries that somebody had going, and they smushed them together.
Like, yeah, I didn't sign up for a documentary on the intricacies of fast fashion. Like, I was specifically going into this documentary to learn about this brand. And obviously it is a fast fashion brand, so that would be discussed. But it almost felt like, like you said, it was two different documentaries or two different pieces that they smushed together.
Yeah, I would push play on both, but it felt like they smushed them together. And you didn't know you were signing up for that when you pushed play, which again is fine. That's part of pushing play on any kind of media, is you're going to experience it in some way. But yeah, that would be a critique here. I think that the story was interesting, and who besides none other than Kate Taylor is in this documentary. Now, Kate Taylor was a journalist in Quiet on Set, which we covered last week. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to it.
We're unintentionally following her. We didn't know she was in both, but what a happy incident.
It was such an interesting coincidence to see Kate again a second week in a row. And who knows what other documentaries we may see her in. Would love to have a conversation with her.
That's what I was going to say. Like, maybe she'll hop on the podcast.
Please,
I would love to pick her brain, and just, she obviously does great reporting.
Yes.
The whole Brandy Hellville, The Cult of Fast Fashion, the documentary that we're talking about really is a result of her reporting for Business Insider. It was based on an article she wrote, and she was the perfect person to talk about every little detail that happened with this brand. And so that's why we're bringing her up, because she obviously knows what she's talking about.
She finds topics that we're interested in. We will have to dive into more of her work or whatever else is out there, and has me curious if she's part of any other documentaries. I'm sure we'll find out through this segment. Regardless, let's get into the side of this documentary that is about Brandy specifically.
And let's give the audience a little bit of background on Brandy before we get into all the nitty gritty. So I had no idea that it was founded in the 80s by an Italian founder, Stefan Marsan. We first saw it here in the US in 2009 in Westwood, which is a smallish city in LA, which is right by the UCLA campus. And this is right around the time that I was there. So I definitely remember people wearing it. I don't think I was that cool. So I wasn't cool enough to be wearing this. I wasn't quite on the pulse, but I did notice this style happening at the time.
It's important to kind of note too that as an Italian man, the founder of Brandy Melville started it in Italy, in Europe, and it just wasn't really doing amazing there. And so they started focusing on the US. Obviously, the US is a massive market. We're a huge country with a lot of people. And I could see where that would be advantageous. And there's a lot of consumer culture here. He moves it over here and it started taking off. But it was also, to me, slow because I'm with you. I didn't even know what Brandy Melville was till I was like, I don't want to say too old for it, but I was watching, for example, Tana Mojo, like watching 20-year-olds in 2018 going feral for it. That's really who it was. It's like these late 90s babies started catching on, but I think he also was watching what was doing well, what wasn't, and then ended up with a brand that was doing really well. And I don't think we can talk about this brand and talk about it doing well in the US without saying the most, I don't want to use the word iconic in a positive light because I don't view this as a positive at all, but one of the most recognizable things about Brandy Melville, that's the word I'm looking for, is that it's one size fits all. Or as some people joke, one size fits none, because I don't think I've ever seen two bodies that are the same, even in identical twins. It's just weird.
Their one size is typically an extra small or a small. So it cuts out a huge chunk of the public, the consumers that would be buying this, that are in the right demographic, whether it's like age, location. People want to go in and buy it and they realize, oh, I don't fit into anything here. And it's a big turnoff. And it's like such a damaging time to be doing this to such a young consumer base. You know what I mean? These are teenage girls that he was targeting and they go into the store and don't fit into the clothes. They may already feel some type of way about their body and then they go in and realize they can't wear the same clothes as their friends.
Yes, as their friends, as the cool girls at school. Like you said, this is like the Americana, effortlessly cool girl type aesthetic. Think like baby tees and jeans, but you just put it on and it looks good on you because you're a size 0. And yes, that can be so damaging. But this doesn't surprise me given what we learn about Stefan at all. That he would go one size fits all. He didn't want the bigger girls wearing his clothes. And it's so obvious to tell. I don't even think he would hide it.
Insurance can feel like a secret language, full of codes, copays, and fine print that make reaching your weight loss goals harder than it needs to be. That's why Ro created a free insurance checker to help cut through the confusion. In just a few days after sharing your insurance info, you'll get a simple report showing which GLP-1 weight loss medications your plan may cover, and whether prior authorization is covered. No membership needed. If you decide to move forward, Ro guides you through the next steps, including an online medical visit and any lab work if needed. From there, a Ro-affiliated healthcare provider reviews your BMI, lab results, and medical history to see if medication is right for you. The insurance checker itself is completely free, and if you qualify and choose to continue with treatment, Ro membership is $145 a month. Over 1 million people have already trusted Ro to check their coverage for free. And if you choose to become a Ro member, you'll have support throughout the entire process with on-demand access to your provider whenever questions come up. Go to ro.com/diaries for your free insurance check. That's ro.com/diaries ro.co/diaries to see if your insurance covers GLP-1s for free. Go to ro.co/safety for box warning and full safety information about GLP-1 medications.
No, I don't think he did hide it in a lot of the group chats he had with employees, which we later find out would be hundreds of people, not just like his managers, but it would be like salespeople and people in lower positions that had no need to know like the inner workings of the business. One thing I wanted to mention before we like completely get too far from it though, when we were talking about this one size fits all aspect of the brand is it almost made it have this exclusivity. You know what I mean? It made it something aspirational for a lot of girls because if you could fit into Brandy, then you were better in their minds.
You were a Brandy girl or you weren't a Brandy girl. This brand became huge and nobody knew the horrificness of what was going on. And it was very 15 years before it, Hollister style, hiring girls. And in the, what was it? The New York store, or I don't remember what the flagship store was, but one of the people who worked there remembers that they used to have like buttons on by like the register for like, oh, you need to ask this person if they want to work here. The girls were encouraged to, and I say girls because it was typically young teenage people identifying as girls that worked there. Like this was a shop for people that were identifying as girls, and that is the demographic that was being sought after. And he made these young girls go seek out other young girls, and pictures were taken and they were posted on Instagram, and lights are going off at the register to offer them jobs. And he used to hide out because it's like, okay, how did he see them? Like, how is this light going off at the register? Definitely, I think the Brooklyn store had more of like a lofty area, and that's where Stefan's like office was. And he would be like looking. And these are young girls. We're talking 16-year-old girls that they don't know any better. And he's also off the clock talking to them about politics, and he's just so inappropriate with them.
It felt very voyeuristic in the way that he was handling a lot of things. Like you mentioned, girls would clock in for their shift, and the first thing that they would do is they would stand for a photo. And
every time
when you're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, you don't really question a lot of things. At least that's how these girls were explaining why they stood for the photos. Eventually, some of them started asking, where are these photos going? And that sort of caused an upheaval as well. You're not supposed to ask where these photos are going. You're not supposed to know. That's none of your business. And so you had these girls not knowing where their photos were going. And later we find out that Stefan was keeping these photos for years and years and years. And it was just like this collection he had of young adolescents in his clothing.
This grown man with pictures of teenage girls. It might as well be CSAM. Honestly, it's just weird if it's not your niece and with some family picture or something that you have, or like a picture that, you know, your sister or brother sent you of your niece. Like, that's just weird to have a picture of a young kid. Like, it's weird. And he was just very inappropriate. He was discriminatory in the hiring practices, but he skirted some of those laws by putting people that he viewed not worthy of being on the floor, i.e., not of demographics that he agreed with or the look type he was looking for. He would put them down in basements and back rooms, whatever, doing stock. Now, what's interesting is a lot of these girls, because yes, they were also still young girls, remember having a lot of fun in the back, joking around, having a good time when they were on shift with each other. So I'm glad that they have that, but they did start to pick up on like, oh, wait, this is awful. We were like kept back here, but they didn't think much of it because these are people from demographics that are often part of marginalized communities that are taught about this kind of off discriminatory behavior that skirts ethical lines. But it is sweet to see them remember one of their first teenage jobs, having fun in the back or down in the basement doing stock and just making money, having fun with some coworkers. And then as adults, realizing how horrible it is.
They shouldn't have had to make the best of it, but they did make the best of it.
Thank you for being so much more concise than me. I'm always running over my words, but yes, they made the best of it. And in some ways, I don't want to say better experience, but what's the word I'm looking for? They may have avoided some of the like stand for a picture, because I think, wasn't that something else they were talking about where the girls who were being looked at on the floor and who were working the floor, taking pictures, I think the stock girls, they didn't have pictures.
There was an employee who did do the stock room. She spoke about getting photographed one time. Mm-hmm. And they did acknowledge that this was a practice, not just to when you clock in to get your photograph taken, but if you were wearing something that Stefan really liked, you would be contacted and be told, hey, where did you get those pants? Can we pay you for them? And one of these instances happened, and it was an employee that worked in the stock room, and she was told, Stefan really likes your pants. Where'd you get them? Can we have them? Whatever, something like that. And she gave the information. I don't know if she necessarily gave them to him, but other instances had employees being paid up to $300 for their garment. And she made the comment of, oh, well, that's interesting that I didn't get paid for what I was wearing, but I did give that information of where they could be purchased. Mm-hmm. So there still was like some discrepancies, but there were occasionally photos of them taken as well. At least that's what I interpreted from the documentary.
And this is all happening, by the way. There are really inappropriate group chats going on. And some of these are with the young employees talking about politics and making them read an Ayn Rand book and just some really inappropriate things that the person who owns where you work should not be discussing with you, especially as a teenager. This should be more so explored with trusted adults like your parents and teachers and the such.
And according to some of the research that went into this whole topic, these group chats also had racist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic jokes, and that's in quotes.
And this is in a large company group chat, by the way.
Yeah, like, with hundreds of people.
Yes, they called it Brandy Melville gags. And they would send weird things such as
a photo of the founder in a Hitler costume. So
I mean, what are we doing?
We're talking about some serious, that's not even a misjudgment. That's just like serious racism.
Yes, it's serious.
That was happening, very blatant, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And he would mock marginalized communities in many different ways. This included anti-Semitism, and you already mentioned the racism. It wasn't even line skirting. It was over the line beyond, and somehow it still stayed somewhat blurred in terms of what to do. I don't feel like anybody knew what to do with this guy because they had this buzzing business with these clothes that these girls wanted to wear and employees and all of the things.
Well, and you bring up a good point. Like, these young girls were part of what you called like a buzzing business. Brandy Melville was tied to this really big online presence, social media presence. And to be featured, one of your photos to be featured on Brandy's Instagram was a huge honor. And it was something that these girls aspired to happen to them. And if you're working at your dream job, a couple of the girls say like they felt like they were better than other girls their age because they were working at Brandy and they would get their photos.
Or like the girls that came in, right? That like didn't quite fit the Brandy aesthetic. It's like, maybe they're transitioning their wardrobe. What? Yeah, they thought they were better.
It was a big thing. And so when it's something that you really want, how do you separate this awful owner and the brand that you know and love? And so I imagine it was probably really difficult for these young girls to figure out where to go from here. And like, what were they going to do? Could he be arrested for this? Probably not. Is it just so gross and inappropriate? Yes.
And unethical. Yeah.
And unethical. But like, what recourse did they have besides quitting?
Yeah, especially when you are that young. Like, you don't even understand. This is your first experience with something like this horrible. And some people never experience something this horrible. Some people experience even worse. So we're not comparing, but like, this is a new frame of reference for them that they're probably carrying for the rest of their lives. Now, things did escalate to a point where
Can I jump in really quick?
Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, please.
And a lot of these employees were getting perks that they wouldn't get anywhere else. For example, a number of the girls that were seen as very trendy, Stefan would ask them if they would like to go to these buying trips to the manufacturers in China and Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were on trips for weeks, all expense paid trips with the best hotels, first class tickets on airlines.
They were like being wooed in a way.
They were being wooed, and they were taken to these manufacturing factories and had the ability to pick out the clothes that would be sold at the stores.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere else would they have had this opportunity at that age with that little of experience. And one of them mentioned that they were doing jobs that people had spent years trying to do.
Well, and none of them were compensated towards that.
No.
By the way.
I mean, the compensation, you could say,
was the honor, if you will, which is so trash.
The honor and the free trip, basically.
Yeah, but still such trash. I get it. You might not right off the bat, but like once you get to a certain point where you're starting to do that stuff, whether or not you have a degree to back that up or not, you're putting in the work. So you deserve to be compensated.
Oh, absolutely. I believe they were getting something like minimum wage at this time.
It was bad, but they were getting this honor and they kept rolling with it until they all started realizing, I'm not being
this
compensated
isn't right.
And I'm putting in the work.
Yeah.
This isn't right. Exactly. Now, something else that's discussed in this documentary that all of this sort of escalates to these trips and all of these things. In that same vein, there was an apartment in Soho in Manhattan that Brandy Melville had as like a company apartment for, I guess, whoever was dealing with Brandy that needed a place to stay in New York. This girl is invited to stay there. And man, she was excited. She was like, oh my gosh, like I get to stay in New York.
It was seen as yet another honor to be a Brandy girl invited to stay at the Brandy apartment.
She thought she had it all to herself. So she's thinking like, oh my gosh, like dream trip. There was always multiple girls in this apartment, which I kind of get to, especially if it's multiple rooms and you don't own it. But these expectations just weren't really being set very clearly, or at least in a way that she was hearing that. And it gets even worse that an older man who she had no idea who he was, she comes home from going out or being gone and there's just this guy's there now. Oh, okay. She's 21, by the way. And she realizes that, oh my gosh, this guy's there. Now she felt safe enough because this is Brandy's apartment. She's not going to be staying with a total horrible person in her young mind. When in reality, we know it doesn't matter who it is. It could be a family member. People can be unsafe and you have to vet regardless. So all that to say, they go out, they go drinking. She mentions that she has about 2 drinks and then she wakes up with no clothes on in the apartment. And I don't want to get too deep into her story. She's a survivor, so she is able to tell her own story. But it's really awful that this happened under a company's watch and there's hospital reports and things were reported and she clearly went through something, yet barely remembers. So I guess the gist of it is very likely that something happened to one of her drinks is what we're led to understand. And again, she should be able to tell her own story, but this is discussed in the docu. So we wanted to make sure we hit that something awful like this is happening. And you can about guarantee that at this apartment, that might not have been isolated. I'm not saying this same guy, but it's like you get these young girls and you've got some random dudes staying there whenever. It's like, yeah, it might not be isolated. Who knows?
The way that Stefan runs Brandy Melville is super reminiscent of Dove Charney's running of American Apparel, which we covered that documentary a couple of weeks ago. You have the inappropriateness with employees. You have the unsafe conditions. It just shows like toxic masculinity at play. And at least that's what I gather from this. It's like these 2 men felt like they could get away with anything. And for a while they did. But things are catching up to them.
I couldn't have said that better myself. Things are starting to catch up to him. And oh, by the way, slight tangent back to the fast fashion in Italy. The name of the town where clothing is often made in Italy that's fast fashion is Prato.
Prato. I think I said Moto earlier. I knew it was like 2 O's in there.
So I was like, what? It's not. And you know how my brain works. I was like, I got to say it. But yeah, regardless, things were catching up to Stefan. And I don't know if I remember.
Okay, so things are catching up, but they are taking a little bit of time.
Mhm.
What I did find out was that obviously that expose was written in the Business Insider by Kate Taylor. That was done in 2021.
Mhm.
The company, Brandy Hellville, which also means Stefan, because he is the CEO, they didn't even acknowledge or release a statement or an apology about anything that was written about.
I don't think he is apologetic. That's the thing.
Yeah, things are catching up, but he's turning the other cheek. Like, he's not come out with an apology yet.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that it won't happen. When I say it won't happen, I mean, it doesn't mean that he won't be held accountable. Things take time. We may learn a little bit more about this.
A lot of it's going to be somewhat difficult because, as Kate Taylor talks about, the corporate structure of Brandy is considered chaotic. There's a shell corporation and it owns each of the brand's stores, and the trademark is owned by another company in Switzerland. So it's a big paper trail. And there's this other quote that I just came by that I think could open up like a whole nother conversation, but you already mentioned it about the pants and like, oh, hey, can we have your pants? And I know I'm totally turning this conversation, but like this quote just hit me and it popped up to me right now in our notes. But it says, in some cases, this is from Kate Taylor herself, in some cases, the names of these things on the Brandy Melville website, they'll be like the Jocelyn shirt. And it'll be because this shirt was literally purchased off Jocelyn's back.
It is literally Jocelyn's shirt.
It's bizarre, but like we're supposed to get an honor. What is happening? And I'm so confused how he can just resell a shirt. Like, I don't get it. And that's the blurred lines of it all. Something nefarious is going on, but what is it? And it's blurry.
He's faced several copyright infringement lawsuits from the likes of Forever 21 and other brands that he literally ripped off the designs for. So like, people are taking notice of the way that he's running the brand, the way that the brand just rips off other designs. I'm really curious what is going to happen with it in the next couple of years. I think, to me, what I see is just more of an awareness of how this brand is, what the policies and what the ideology behind this brand. I think that's going to do more to, I guess, stop it in its tracks. If more and more people realize what kind of brand this is, maybe they'll stop shopping there. And then once they stop shopping there, he's going to have to close down stores. That's kind of how I see this recourse happening.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. And I think we're going to be able to find out a lot more about what was and wasn't illegal, what was ethics, what was legally backed, where you can be charged with something, or where he can be charged with something, I should say. So it'll be interesting, but like something's going to play out. Something, because this documentary is not going anywhere and it just came out in 2024. So we're 2 years out, but these things can take a long time, especially when you have a paper trail that's all over the place, different companies, different countries. This is wild and it's going to take a long time. And that's probably by design.
Absolutely. I feel like this is a good spot for us to like put a lid on the conversation and leave it to our audience to start the conversation in the comments. What did you think about the documentary? What did you think about Brandy Melville? Did you shop there? Do you have anything in your closet from the brand still? Tell us about your experience with these clothes.
Make sure that you watch Bama Rush for next week's episode.
Oh, I'm excited.
I'm super excited too. Before that, though, you know that we will be back on Thursday with true crime case coverage of a case that needs your attention, Monday with Unscripted, and again next Tuesday for Bama Rush. So lots of things popping off. We got 3 segments a week that we get to hang out with you guys. So we appreciate you listening and being with us today, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode.
You can find us on social media at the Murder Diaries Pod, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Insurance can feel like a secret language, full of codes, copays, and fine print that make reaching your weight loss goals harder than it needs to be. That's why Ro created a free insurance checker to help cut through the confusion. In just a few days after sharing your insurance info, you'll get a simple report showing which GLP-1 weight loss medications your plan may cover, and whether prior authorization is covered. No membership needed. If you decide to move forward, Ro guides you through the next steps, including an online medical visit and any lab work if needed. From there, a Ro-affiliated healthcare provider reviews your BMI, lab results, and medical history to see if medication is right for you. The insurance checker itself is completely free, and if you qualify and choose to continue with treatment, Ro membership is $145 a month. Over 1 million people have already trusted Ro to check their coverage for free. And if you choose to become a Ro member, you'll have support throughout the entire process with on-demand access to your provider whenever questions come up. Go to ro.com/diaries for your free insurance check. That's ro.co/diaries to see if your insurance covers GLP-1s for free. Go to ro.co/safety for box warning and full safety information about GLP-1 medications.